Good morning, everyone. Wait, this isn't a 380 SL video. This isn't a 911 SC video. This is a 2000 BMW E46 328i. I am the second owner of this vehicle. I purchased it 13 years ago from the original owners who bought it brand new. I have every receipt for it, every repair. It's a great little car. Great little car. 328i. It's dirty. It is just positively filthy. And it has an oil leak problem. This is the panel that fits up under the engine. You can see that it is leaking somewhere from the back of the motor. Worse, on the passenger side rear. Then it drips down the holes and onto the driveway and just makes a royal mess of everything. This little bit of leakage here we're seeing is typical BMW power steering fluid, but this is engine oil. A little history on this car. I bought it as a used car with 80,000 miles on it about 13 years ago. The original owners bought it brand new from the BMW dealership in town, and they drove it 10 years, and their children drove it, and it survived the high school parking lots, college parking lots, and then they traded away on a Toyota at the Toyota dealership. I saw it sitting there. My middle son Matt was needing a car for high school, and I bought it and had a couple things I had to do to it. It had a bad idler pulley which was making a screeching noise, and what else did I have to do to it? That was about it. Ran perfectly fine. My son drove it all through high school, 4 years of college, and 4 years living in Lafayette, Louisiana, working down there. But as a BMW gets older, it needs work and it needs maintenance. It was getting to the point where the BMW dealership in Lafayette just was coming up with incredible estimates of the work that this car needed when he would bring it in to be for his oil changes or for maintenance. You're seeing that dent in the door there. That happened when my son was in high school, and the dent in the fender. But maintenance-wise, we had everything done to it. I worked on it all the time. When he got down to Lafayette, of course, he had to trust the BMW dealer, and the last straw was when they told him it needed $9,000 worth of work because the air conditioning wasn't working correctly, and they came up with so much that needed to be done to it. It was just unbelievable. And that's when my son said, okay, that's it. And he went and got himself a Volkswagen Tiguan SUV. And I said, I'll just take my car back and bring it back up here. He said, Dad, the AC doesn't work. It's 100 degrees outside. The BMW dealership says I need an air conditioning compressor and, $9,000 worth of work. And I said, that's all right, I'm coming to get it. And we went down there, and I drove it 210 miles home. And every time I'd stop to get a little more water for myself, to hydrate myself, I'd hear a hissing sound under the hood, and I would look, and it was just hissing and blowing out of the air conditioner low pressure line right here under this cap. I was like, what is the deal here? So, I got myself a little screwdriver and released a little pressure into the atmosphere. Don't come and arrest me. And then I drive a little bit further, and still no air conditioning, and another 50 miles down the road, and I'd pull over, and that thing was just hissing and hissing and hissing. And I was like, what is going on here? And finally, at about 50 miles from home, I had drained off enough Freon for it to stop hissing. And I had air conditioning the whole way home. I have no idea what the BMW dealership did. I believe they overfilled it with Freon. Since that time, which was a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, it was about a year and a half ago. Air conditioning has worked all the time. I have no idea what they were doing, either inexperienced technicians or just trying to make some extra bucks on someone. It was very disappointing, but I've got it home. Also, at that time, I had an oil leak, and it now has 167,000 miles on it. And I have been procrastinating just the way I always do, that I need to take a look at this thing because this car just runs too well. Everything works on it. It is comfortable. In normal routine driving around town here, it gets anywhere between 24 and 25 miles per gallon. On the interstate, you can get 30. But the oil leak was just driving me too batty. And this was my daily beater that I would drive, and it made such a mess of the driveway, I decided this is it. It is time, and it is time. And so I've got everything here. I'm suspecting I have a dry, cracked valve cover gasket, and it is leaking right down the back of the motor. I'm up under the car now, and that belly pan that's up under there holds things in, but I'm looking around and I really don't see much of anything. But I will show you the spot that it was leaking the most. I am under the passenger side of the vehicle, and it is dripping right down on this bolt right here is where the most of it came down. Traveling, I'm thinking, from the back of the valve cover up here, way up there, down, and just following the line and dripping right down there. Other than that, it looks okay. So it's time for maintenance. I've disconnected my battery in the trunk already. It's going to be time for me to remove my air filter, check my air filter, and hopefully I can find myself another one of these in the junkyard. It's all cracked up. It needs an oil and filter change. I do have some leaking hoses on my power steering fluid reservoir. I want to change that too. Oil and filter change, definitely. I'm going to take off the valve cover and the valve cover gasket. I'm going to remove the spark plugs because it's time for spark plugs to be replaced on this. Basically go through and put a new valve cover gasket on and take everything apart and clean everything and get this thing to stop leaking and messing up my driveway. There are many videos out there on BMW E46 repair. So I'm not going to bore you with taking everything apart and showing you how to take out a few bolts and things. But right here was the air box. I just took that off. This is your mass airflow sensor. That does not need to come out. I put my bolts back in so I don't lose them. I took out and disconnected this big, large wire loom because it's in the way. This is where your air filter sits for your cabin filter, and as you can see, It is full of pine straw and everything else, and I am going to vacuum all that out. I'm also looking at how bad my cowl is here. It is broken terribly over all the years, and you can see it is just a disaster. And I think this car is definitely worth it. I'm going to take off my windshield wipers and I'm going to order a new cowl. They're not that expensive. They're about $80, maybe a little bit more. And I'm going to put that on before I put all this back together. I'm going to go, this car deserves a little bit of care and a little bit of maintenance and some cleaning. And I'm going to take off my pan right here. That is part of the air filter system. There are some screws, right? And look at all this. Oh my gosh. There are some screws back here, right there I'm pointing to, that you remove. In fact, I'm missing one and one right over there that bolts this on. I'm gonna get all these things free so I can get to my valve cover. This is a cover that's on here. This is the valve cover itself. This is a cover that comes off, your oil filler. I was missing, after the last work at the BMW dealership, I'm missing the cover that goes here. But I have another one from the junkyard, and you've got to disconnect your crankcase ventilation hose. And that's going to be fun because I don't know how old this is, and it's plastic, and I don't want to crunch it and break it. But I'm just going to slowly start taking things apart here. And when something is interesting or that might help someone, I'll show it to you. The air box for the air filter has been removed, and you can see how much room has now opened up here for me to get in here and be able to get the valve cover off. Plenty of room now. As you can see, I've removed the cover that says BMW on it. And these are your cylinders. These are your coils right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 coils. There are bolts. Well, actually, they're nuts. Go all the way around. They all have to be removed. Your coils all have to be removed, and they just unclip. And then you have a bolt here, pull that out. Your spark plugs are down in there. When you're removing the valve cover, you will remove everything. You will remove this ground cable here. Down in here you see a nut that has to be removed. There's a lot to take off here. Be real careful with your wiring loom here, and also all of your grounds. It helps to take a picture of everything so you know where everything goes when you put it back together. Here is a video of the nuts that hold the valve cover on, and you will see this is the nut, okay, this is the washer, and this is the rubber seal, which, as you can see on mine, are so dry rotted they've turned into hard plastic and they crumble in your fingers. So when you're putting in a new valve cover, a kit will come hopefully with all of these seals. They need to be replaced. I mean, this stuff is as hard as a rock, and it's supposed to be nice and pliable and soft, and it's not anymore, which is where oil starts to leak from. These, when you pull these out up here close to the intake manifold, they're gonna still be nice and pliable, except for that one, which has got pieces. But these down here sit right above the exhaust manifold, And I mean, these are your oxygen sensors right down in there, and a lot of heat, and these things are toast. They are just so dry and so cracked. You can see how they'd be leaking oil. They are completely broken and cracked. Okay, I've got all the outer bolt nuts off on the valve cover. I have disconnected my crankcase ventilation, and in order to do that, so you don't break it, this is plastic. Okay, let me get my fingers here. You squeeze from the top and the bottom. This is brittle. And as you're squeezing down like this, it will just slide off. I will show you how to remove your coil wiring. And I don't mean to make this too utterly simple for y'all, but I mean, you basically take your screwdriver and just go like that. And then like this. And then you unplug it. I mean, that's how simple it is. And I'm looking in there, and yeah, there still is a little dielectric grease there, so that's good. But you do that for all 6 coils, and then you start taking the coils off themselves. All the coil wiring connectors are disconnected, and I'm looking in there, and I can still see the dielectric grease that I put in there maybe about 5 years ago when I changed the spark plugs the last time. Now, this is a harness right here, as you can see where my finger is. Basically, this just pops right up and out, and just when you start undoing the ground cable here, this can just move away to the side, and that way you don't have to worry about getting it in your way when you're replacing the valve cover. I have disconnected that ground wire. I took off this little bottom channel from that connector right there that runs across, which is your positive battery cable. And I just kind of put the coil wiring right up here where it's out of the way. Down here, you have these little clips right there. This is your oxygen sensor wiring connectors. They just clip right into there out of the way. Be careful of your vacuum hose here. It fits very neatly right in here and right down here. You don't want to break that vacuum hose, which goes to this little pump for your air pump, which turns on when you first start your vehicle up in the morning and it's cold. The air pump runs a little bit. It's electric, and you don't want to mess up this vacuum hose because that'll turn on a check engine light. I've unscrewed the 2 bolts that hold the coil in, and this is a ground wire which attaches to this one, and there's a little nut right in here that you're going to have to remove when it comes time to take the valve cover off. Just don't forget where these things go, and then the coil just lifts right out. Let's take a look in there. Okay, looks all right. And right down in that hole down on the bottom, that is where your spark plug sits. Okay, with what you pay for service at an official BMW dealership, you would think they wouldn't leave broken pieces of plastic with a hose sitting right here where the coil is? That's crazy. I don't even know what that is. And why is it laying there? What else am I gonna find? Coils are out. You may think that you're down to the time of going ahead and pulling this off, but you can't. Where those ground wires were hooked up, you still have one there, one there, one there, and one there needs to be removed. And these are those last 4. And look at how cracked and hard and broken all these are. They're as hard plastic. They're supposed to be rubber. Good morning. I am back at it on the 328i. I swore that I had the valve cover gasket and seals somewhere. I didn't. So I've had to put them on order. But what I've done in the meantime this morning early is I went ahead and I drained the oil, put in a fresh filter, put in the 2 little seals on the bottom of the filter cover here. I have found, and let me just show you this. I have a 36 millimeter socket which fits directly on top of the bolt, and it is so easy to take off the filter housing, and it's so easy to put the filter housing back on. To 25 Newton meters is your torque setting on that. Also, the oil change kit comes with a filter, an O-ring for the drain plug, and it comes with the rubber seal that is on the cap. It does not come with the 2 little green seals that are at the bottom of this screw here. Change those out. That helps with your oil pressure. So I've got that in. That's looking good, and we'll be filling it with oil soon. Other thing that I decided to do was to change out my Vanos oil line, which is this oil line right here. My original one is 23 years old, and they were seeping and leaking a little bit, so brand new one, and it is a original BMW part, fits like a glove. This is really easy to get off here. This is a 19 millimeter bolt. It's a banjo bolt. It has 2 crush washers, one there, one there. And then the other part of it is hard to see. Let me turn on some lights here. Right down in here. Right down there. You can actually get to it by unplugging this electrical connector, the electrical connector that is on the alternator, and the electrical connector that's sitting right on the back of the oil filter housing. And it was nothing to it. I just used an let me show you what I used to get in there. This one here was simple enough with just a regular 19 millimeter. But the one that was up underneath the intake manifold, I have an offset 19 millimeter, and it was perfect. It was so easy to get to, and I'm trying to take care of things that haven't been taken care of for a while. A little bit later today, I'm going to be, of course, when I'm not here, I have my engine covered. I don't want anything flying in there. I'm going to change out spark plugs. And then that might be it for today. I've got other projects going on. I need to get back on my 911 SC. But I'm also going to be waiting for parts for my valve cover gasket and all the little grommets and things like that that fit on there, and I want to do it the right way. And I will just wait till that comes in. Back working on the 328i BMW. I am changing spark plugs. This is a 6-cylinder, so therefore there are 6. I'm using the factory recommended spark plugs, which are the NGK BKR6 EQ UP 3199. These have been in here about 80,000 miles. Let's see if I can zoom in on this. Yeah, it's time to change spark plugs. 80,000 miles is enough. They are relatively difficult to get out after all these years and 80,000 miles, but they're going in perfectly fine. And just to let everyone know that it is 18 foot-pounds is what you torque these down to, I believe, which is 25 Newton meters. And just slowly moving along, still waiting on parts to come in. Once I get the spark plugs installed, I am going to take the valve cover outside, it's raining today, and pressure washer it and get it all cleaned up. It is just pretty grody. Same time I'm going to do the bottom pan, the belly pan up under it, get it nice and clean. Then I'm waiting for my valve cover gasket to come in, and also all of the little seals that go on the nuts that go on it. I do notice that I have a significant power steering fluid leak. And what would a BMW be without a power steering fluid leak? I have a new reservoir. I have both hoses, which fit right down there, to be replaced. And they are leaking pretty good. And I think I changed these things out maybe about 5 years ago. And that's about all it lasts. I mean, it gets warm in the engine compartment of these BMWs, and we live in Northeast Louisiana, and it is hot in the summertime. So I'm going to go ahead and change those hoses out also, and slowly start putting it back together. I did find myself a new cowl. This thing is just destroyed. It's just falling apart, and it's just horrible. Got to take the windshield wipers off to replace that, but I am going to replace that cowl. And also, I think I'm finally going to do something that I wanted to do many years ago, and I never did it, but a long time ago I found xenon headlights in the junkyard, and they've been sitting in my attic waiting, and I am going to take these halogens out and replace them with the xenons that I found in the junkyard. That'll update the front nicely. In preparation for the valve cover replacement on the 2000 E46 328i, I have all new sealing washers, nice, firm, rubbery. I have old plastic hardened ones, which were causing oil leaks. Then I have, even on the 4 extra nut studs that mount in there, I've got the brand new seals on there too. And we're getting close to the time of putting on the new valve cover gaskets and getting it all put back together. And things are coming along a little bit. Valve cover is back on, new spark plugs, all new seals on the valve cover. Coils are plugged in, that's all installed. I still have to install the positive lead from the battery to here. And of course put the air filter assembly and everything back on. And what's that say? No oil. That's right, I haven't put oil in it yet since the oil change. It's a nice little reminder. I have that do not start this engine. And also I have to get this power steering reservoir replaced and the hoses that go down, because they are leaking terribly. It's been about a week since I've been in here, and I had a puddle right up under it, directly under the high pressure hose that goes to the steering rack. And also I've noticed that my steering rack, the bellows for the tie rods are all cracked up and broken, and my tie rod ends are not very good. So I'm going to add to the project to this that I'm going to replace both left and right front tie rods complete, and then put the new boot kit on them. And got that on order, waiting for it to come in. Have a good day. Continuing with work on the E46 328i. As you can see, my windshield cowl is completely dry rotted and cracking to pieces, and you have to take off your windshield wipers. That's one of the first things you have to take off to be able to get the cowl off. And there is a great little tool which I use. Looks just like this, and the wiper just comes right off when you screw it down. But let's take a look and see what's underneath this cowl. Last time I changed this was about 12 years ago. Oh my. This is what collects under your windshield cowl, and it is just a mess. This is what is left of the windshield cowl that's been on there now 12 years. It literally just cracks and falls apart in your fingers. Ordered myself a brand new one from, I believe, FCP Euro. And we're gonna vacuum under here, get all this cleaned up, and put a fresh brand new one on there. And I'm excited about that. Very excited. Presto. Now that looks a whole lot better. Cowl all clean. Windshield clean. Now, to put on the brand new windshield wiper cowl plastic. This is the part number for the windshield wiper cowl. Fits like a glove. Doesn't that look better? Close the hood a little bit. Nice. Very nice. I am super pleased. You do have to transfer the rubber molding from the front of your old one onto here, but that is no big deal at all. And here we go. Cowl is installed, seals are installed, windshield wipers are reinstalled. And that looks good. Nice. Nice, nice, nice. Most amazing thing about this car being 23 years old, I'm gonna jinx myself now, but this is the original windshield, which is crazy. Here is another while I was at it addition for this little car. The original headlight seals, which are these right here, were completely worn out and leaving chunks of plastic and tar and rubber everywhere. Just junk. It's 23 years old. What do you expect? Anyway, very simple process. Just unclipping the seals here, 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 and down on the bottom, and they just popped right out. And that looks nicer. It really does. And when I close the hood, that does look nicer now. No more gaps, no more holes where the original gaskets were already all worn out. And that's all put back together. As I'm going along, I'm also cleaning. As you can see, the hood is now clean. The windshield is clean. The roof and the rest are not. But as with all of my little projects here, I collect parts for a while, keep them all in boxes and in bins, and know that one of these days I'm going to get on it, and now is the time to get on it. So what's left to do? I need to add oil. I need to put the engine compartment back together. I need to change out the power steering hoses that are leaking and the fluid reservoir, and add oil. And then I'll take it off of the front ramps and put some jack stands under it so I can take care of left and right tie rods. And I haven't even started on the interior yet because I really want to clean these seats. I want to take these cocoa mats out and clean the carpet. Lots of stains in here. I'm just trying to get this thing looking as good as it runs. I was wrong in my assumption that most of the oil that was, or what I thought fluid, which I thought was engine oil, was leaking from the BMW. It's not. After sitting for a couple of weeks, had a little back injury and haven't been able to do very much, I came into the shop, and directly underneath the vehicle, right there, you see this large puddle. Okay? I know it's not engine oil because there is no engine oil in it. I do believe it is coming directly. You can see all that. That is power steering fluid. And that is coming from right up here. Okay? Trying to zoom in on that, trying to get a good, it's just not wanting to focus. But that hose clamp right there, focus. It just will not focus. What we're looking at is the power steering fluid line right here, and the bottom clamp from the power steering hose right there. And from what I can see, or wait a minute. Yeah, it is coming from that hose dripping down onto here, which is actually a transmission fluid cooler line, I believe. But if I look way down in here, that hose is leaking terribly also, which is power steering hose. So I've gotten all new power steering hoses everywhere and a new reservoir, and I'm going to change all that out. Yes, this is automatic transmission fluid cooler right there. It's not leaking from that. It's not leaking from, it's coming from up here, dripping directly onto here, which is dripping right down onto there, which is leaving this puddle. And then this other puddle is coming directly from up here, from that other power steering fluid line. And that is what is really leaking. So I have quite a bit of work to do to get all these lines replaced, get everything cleaned up and dried. Not engine oil at all. Looking down at the power steering fluid lines, the top line goes to the reservoir. The bottom line goes to the actual rack itself. Presto, magic. A lot has happened. Everything's back together. Valve cover's on. Covers are on, oil put in, fresh power steering fluid, all new hoses, brand new air filter. I still have to put on the under hood air filter for the cabin that comes up in there, but I wanted to start it up and make sure that it's running. Done a lot here. Oil and filter change, air filter, spark plugs, valve cover, all new valve cover gasket, Vanos line right there, 3 power steering hoses, headlight all new seals, and it's looking good. What's left to do is I have to get it off the front ramps and put some jack stands up under there and get these front wheels off, because I need to change out the front tie rods left and right with some new boots. I've hooked up the battery, and oops, I guess I should get a key. Okay, I've got a key. I've had it running already once a little bit, just to check my oil level, check power steering fluid. I've already been up underneath it to look for leaks, and nothing is dripping so far. Of course, I've got to set my clock, and the battery's been disconnected. She sounds great. Now check engine light. 167,000 miles. Sounds really good. Basically, much needed maintenance, and try to stop the oil leakage, which ended up being oil and power steering fluid. So next time we'll have the wheels off and we will get some new tie rods put on this thing and still continue the cleaning process. Wanting it to look really good, bring it back to the way it should be. The engine compartment is back together on the E46 328i. All underhood maintenance items were taken care of. Got a new pollen filter in there. All the covers are on, fresh oil and filter, fresh Vanos lines, fresh power steering fluid reservoir and hoses, air filter, windshield wipers, cowl. I'm quite pleased. Next step is going to be getting it off the ramps onto some jack stands so I can get these front wheels off and take a look at these tie rods. Well, time has come. Time for wheels to go back on. Of course, I like using my little stud tool here to hang the wheel on while I put the lug bolts in. We have brand new tie rods, complete. I measured the old tie rods, and this side was at 12 inches from the middle of here to a mark that's right here, and the other side was 11 3/4, which is going to be close enough for me to get it to go have an alignment done. But everything's looking good. Both sides. Everything else looks great up underneath here. Brake pads look great. Rotors look perfectly fine. I think I've got the majority of the oil leaks taken care of. I don't see much dripping. And of course, you know, it needs to be driven. I still have a lot of cleaning to do. I haven't gotten to the interior yet. And also, I am going to be replacing my rear high-mounted brake light. These are pretty expensive from BMW. Mine is just a disaster. It's falling apart. I found this one from a 528i in the wrecking yard, and I paid about $10 for it. And that I'm just gonna have to take that off. And of course, you look at my headliner and see all my little divots there. Typical German headliners that like to fall down when they're 23 years old. But all in all, quite successful. I can't wait to get it running and driving on the street again. Still want to clean the inside. I want to clean the carpets. A lot of detail work I still want to do. But it's a good little car, and I like it. All right, wheels are back on. Lug nuts are tightened up. I'll tighten up a little bit more when I get it on the ground. But when I started all this, I would take the wheel and do it this way, in and out. I had so much slop from the tie rod, but ball joint's perfectly fine, and you can see there is nothing moving on this side. And from the driver's side, top to bottom, nothing. Nice. Oh, this is exciting. It had been worrying me. Sometimes I'd hit a bump when I was on the interstate at speed, and the whole steering wheel would kind of jerk back and forth. And that was the tie rods. On the driver's side, the outer tie rod ball joint was definitely worn. And then the one that bolts the inner, which bolts onto the steering rack, was loosey-goosey. Passenger side, the outer was perfectly fine, but I replaced the whole tie rod, and the inner was just as loose also. So that should take care of that. And always put your tools away. I love this little post that they gave you in the toolkit that you put in the lug bolt holes. Always keep it right. And if right inside my toolkit, it's a shame BMW really doesn't do, no one really does tools in the trunk anymore. It's a shame. But they used to give you a couple of wrenches and some pliers and a screwdriver and a crank, manual crank for the sunroof, and of course your lug nut tool, and this wonderful tool which you use to put inside the brake rotor so you can hang the wheel on it while you're gently putting in the lug bolts. I still have to put the trunk back together and tighten up the negative terminal on the battery. Since it's been sitting here a couple of weeks, I'm probably going to put a little charge on it, but you can see how dirty things are. I'm not done yet. I mean, you can see it's dirty. It's got to be cleaned.